The night Alina Harper left Adrian Cole, the rain was coming down so hard it looked like the sky itself had cracked open. Thunder rolled across the city like an angry warning, and every crash made her baby, Ava, flinch in her arms. Alina tightened her grip around the small, soft bundle, pressed against her chest, and whispered, "It's okay, sweetheart. Mommy's right here." Her eyes burned from tears she'd been fighting all evening, but she couldn't let them fall. Not yet. Not until she was out of that penthouse, that life, that world where she was constantly reminded she was lesser. Only 1 year earlier, she had thought she'd stepped into a fairy tale. Adrian Cole was powerful, brilliant, self-made, charming, and at times surprisingly gentle for a man who controlled a billion-dollar empire. He had walked into her life when she was working as a junior administrative assistant at a charity event. Sponsored by his corporation, he'd spoken to her like she mattered, like her thoughts carried weight, like her voice had value. For the daughter of a factory worker who'd grown up juggling 2 jobs and college classes just to survive, being truly seen was a rare and precious thing. But fairy tales are just stories. And in real life, happily ever after always comes with cracks. The beginning of those cracks was subtle, tiny dismissive comments. Meetings she wasn't important enough to attend. Social events where she was quietly guided away from investors and partners. She had believed him each time he said, "I'm just trying to protect you from gossip," or "You don't need that stress," or "These people can be cruel." But slowly the protection felt less like love and more like control. The night everything shattered. Adrian returned late from a corporate gala Alina wasn't invited to for her own comfort. He reeked faintly of whiskey and exhaustion, his tie hanging crookedly, his demeanor sharp and cold. She had been waiting all evening to talk to him about something important. She'd taken 2 pregnancy tests that morning. "Both positive, Adrian," she said, approaching him gently. "We need to talk." His jaw flexed. "Not tonight, Alina. I've had enough meetings for a lifetime. This isn't a meeting. It's about us." He tossed his jacket onto the couch, not even looking at her. "There is no us tonight. I need space." Something inside her cracked. "You've needed space for months. I'm always on the outside of your world. I feel like I'm not even allowed to stand next to you in public." He finally looked at her, then really looked tanned instead of softening. His eyes hardened. "Don't start this. You know how these circles work, so I should just stay hidden forever?" She shot back. "Pretend I'm nothing? Pretend we're nothing?" He didn't raise his voice, but the calmness was worse. "If you want to be with someone like me, you need to understand how to play the role." She froze. "The role?" "The role," he repeated, as if it were the simplest truth in the world. "My lifestyle comes with expectations. You knew that from the beginning. So what am I to you?" Her voice wavered. "A secret. A shadow." "Don't be dramatic, Adrian. I'm pregnant." Light, silent, sharp, electric, dangerous filled the room. He blinked once, twice, but no emotion flickered across his face. "You're sure?" "Yes," she whispered. He exhaled slowly, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "This is not ideal timing. I have a merger happening. There's media attention. Investors are sensitive. We need to think this through logically." Her heart sank like a stone. "Logically?" "Alina," he said softly but firmly, "bringing a child into this world, into my world, requires stability and planning. I can't make decisions based on panic." "I'm not panicking," she said, voice breaking. "I'm telling you, we're having a baby." "Are you?" he asked quietly. "Are you sure this is the life you want to give a child?" Her breath stopped. "What is that supposed to mean?" "It means," he said coldly, "your background, your job, your entire life are not compatible with the scrutiny that comes with mine." The words hit like a slap. Background, job, life, everything she was, everything she had fought for, survived, built, dismissed in one sentence. She stepped back, shivering. "So you're ashamed of me?" "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." He reached for her arm. She pulled away. "Don't leave," he said, tone stern. It was not a plea. It was a command. "I'm not staying where I'm not respected," she whispered. "I won't raise my baby in a home where her father thinks her mother is unworthy." Lena, but she was already walking to the bedroom, already packing, already wiping tears with trembling fingers. When he followed her into the hallway, she met his gaze with heartbreaking clarity. "I loved you," she said. "But love isn't supposed to make you small." She left that night, the door closing like the final line of a chapter that would never reopen. For the next year, she built a life for Ava. A small apartment, a part-time job, a used stroller, nights filled with lullabies instead of arguments. She sent Adrian a letter once, one single letter, telling him she needed time and space. She didn't mention the baby again. When no reply came, she assumed he didn't care enough to look for her. But the truth was far more complicated. Adrian did search, quietly, privately, for months. But Alina had vanished from the digital world, changed numbers, moved cities, cut ties. He didn't tell anyone what happened. Didn't confide in his assistant or his board or even his closest friend. It became his silent punishment, an ache he carried beneath expensive suits and ruthless deals. And then, exactly 1 year after she left, his private phone rang at 3:14 a.m. Only 5 people had the number. None of them were hospitals. "Mr. Cole," a calm voice said, "this is Dr. Jensen from Green Valley Memorial. A patient has been admitted, Lena Harper. She was involved in a major car accident." A pause. She had a child with her. A little girl around 1 year old. The world stopped. Are they alive?" He forced out. "The child appears unharmed but frightened. Miss Harper is in surgery. You're listed as her emergency contact." Adrian's blood ran cold. Emergency contact. She still had his name. "I'm on my way." He didn't remember the drive. Didn't remember the rain. Didn't remember breathing. All he remembered was walking into the pediatric ward and seeing a nurse holding a tiny girl with soft brown curls, big bright eyes that looked unmistakably, shockingly like his. And in that instant, he knew. He didn't need a test. He didn't need proof. His heart spoke before his mind could. She was his daughter. The child reached out with a shaky little hand, touched his wrist, and whispered one soft word, "Da, da." And Adrian, Billionaire, CEO, iron-willed empire builder, felt his entire world collapse and rebuild in one breath. Ava Harper Cole, his child. His blood, his responsibility, his miracle. But Alina wasn't waking up, and the next 24 hours would decide everything. Asterisk. The weight of a single mother's tomorrow, the rain had stopped. But the storm inside Amina had not, as she stepped out of the hospital. The cold air hit her face the way reality hit her heart. Her uniform shirt was still damp from the rain, and her hands still trembled from the shock of earlier helping an injured man on the roadside. Only to lose her job for being late. She had saved a life. And in return, she had lost the only stable source of income she had. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from the school tuition overdue again, her son. Samir, only 8 years old, had no idea how fragile their life was. To him, she was a superhero. To the world, she was just a cleaner, replaceable worker. A background character in other people's important lives. But tonight, she felt like nothing. Amina's home, a universe made of struggle. Small rented room she shared with Samir felt colder than usual. The walls were thin, the ceiling leaked when it rained. The single bulb flickered like it was deciding whether to stay alive. Samir ran to her as soon as she opened the door. "Amy, you're late today. Are you okay?" Amina forced a smile and kissed his forehead. "Yes, my love. Helped someone today." She didn't tell him that her employer didn't care. She helped someone. She didn't tell him she was fired. She didn't tell him that tomorrow's bread was uncertain. "Mama, look. I drew something for you." He held up a crayon drawing of her wearing a cape. "You're a hero," he said proudly. Amina swallowed the lump in her throat. Heroes didn't lose their jobs. Heroes didn't cry in the kitchen when their children weren't looking. Heroes didn't fear the next sunrise. But she hugged him, because some days, love is the only strength people like her have. Asterisk, the man she saved, a life she didn't know she changed. Crossed the city. In a private hospital suite, the man she rescued slowly opened his eyes. The doctors surrounded him. "You're lucky," one said. "Another minute on that road, and you would have lost too much blood." The man winced. "Who brought me here?" "An ordinary woman," the nurse replied. "A single mom, we think. She didn't even wait for her name to be recorded." The man's jaw tightened. He remembered the blurry vision, her hands pressing on his wound, her voice telling him, "Stay with me. You have a family waiting for you. Don't give up." That voice had pulled him back from the edge of darkness. The nurse added. She came on foot. "No car, no umbrella. She ran in the rain while carrying you." He closed his eyes again. He owed his life to a stranger, a woman who vanished before he could thank her. Back at home, when hope breaks later that night, after putting Samir to sleep, Mina checked her wallet. Only 300 rupees? She stared at them for a long time. Money should not hurt to look at. But poverty has a way of making even paper feel heavy. She sat on the floor, hands covering her face. Ya Allah. What do I do now? Her phone buzzed again. Not a message. A call from an unknown number. Amina hesitated. Unknown numbers often meant trouble. Or debt. Still she answered. "Hello?" A deep voice spoke. "Is this Amina?" "Yes." "Who is this?" There was a long pause, too long. Then he said, "You don't know me. But earlier today, you saved my life." Amina froze. Her heartbeat stuttered. The man continued, "I woke up in the hospital. The staff told me what you did. They said you refused to leave your name." Amina swallowed hard. "It's okay. Anyone would have helped." "No," he said firmly. "No, they wouldn't." She didn't know what to say. Then the man asked, "Can we meet tomorrow?" I need to thank you properly." Amina looked at her sleeping son, at the cracked walls, at her reflection in the dim window. She wasn't the type of woman men wanted meetings with. "Sir, I don't need anything. I just did what felt right." The man's voice softened. "But I need something. I need to look you in the eyes and say thank you, please." His tone was heavy. Not entitled, not forceful, just sincere. She hesitated. Life had never given her miracles. Only small battles she barely survived. But something in his voice felt different. "All right," she whispered. "Tomorrow." "Thank you," he replied. "And Amina, yes? You saved the wrong stranger. Or perhaps the right one. We will see tomorrow." The call ended. Amina sat in silence. She didn't know that the man she saved was the billionaire owner of the very company that had fired her. Hours earlier, she didn't know tomorrow would change everything. She didn't know that. Instant karma, good karma was finally on its way. Asterisk. The billionaire who went looking for a nobody morning. Sunlight crept into the small rented room, warming the cracked walls that had witnessed years of struggle. Amina woke before dawn, as she always did. But today her heart was heavier, and strangely hopeful. The memory of last night's call kept replaying. A stranger, a man she saved, asking to meet her. But something in his voice, calm, deep, respectful, didn't sound like an ordinary person. He carried weight behind his words, authority, purpose. And yet, he spoke to her like she mattered. That alone unsettled her more than anything. The search. For the woman who disappeared across the city, the man she rescued, the injured stranger, stood in front of the hospital window, leaning slightly as the pain in his side pulled at him. He ignored the doctor's recommendation to rest another day. "He had work to do, sir," his assistant said nervously. "Your schedule is packed today. Meetings with the board, investors cancel all of it." The assistant blinked. "All of it?" "Yes," the man said. "Find me the woman from last night. I have her phone number now, but I want every detail. Who she is, where she works, why she ran away." The assistant stuttered, "Sir, may I ask why this is so important?" The man turned, eyes dark, with a rare mix of emotion. "She saved my life, and someone who saves lives shouldn't be punished for it." The assistant didn't understand what he meant, but he nodded obediently and left. The man grabbed his coat, ignoring the hospital staff's protests as he walked out. He was done being a patient. He was a man on a mission. Amina preparing for a meeting she didn't understand back in her tiny room. Amina stood in front of the mirror adjusting her dupatta nervously. Samir sat cross-legged on the bed, swinging his feet. "Amy, why are you dressed so nicely today?" he asked. She hesitated. "I'm meeting someone? A job interview?" Her heart skipped. "I hope so, Beta." She wanted to tell him the truth, but children shouldn't carry adult burdens. He didn't need to know she had been fired yesterday. He didn't need to know how close they were to losing everything. She cupped his cheeks. "Be good for the neighbor, Auntie, okay? I won't be long." "When you come back," he said innocently. "Can we get ice cream?" Amina smiled painfully. "Yes, inshallah." She didn't know where she would get the money. But hope is cheap. Dreams cost nothing. The meeting point. A world that didn't belong to her. They agreed to meet at a small cafe near the hospital. When Amina arrived, she instantly knew she didn't belong. The glass doors shone. The tables were spotless. The air smelled of expensive coffee instead of sweat and labor. People in clean suits and polished shoes sat around her. Amina felt the weight of their gazes, some curious, some judgmental. She took a seat in the corner, gripping her bag tightly. Minutes passed. Her heart raced. What if he didn't come? What if this was a mistake? What if he just wanted to thank her and walk away, and she would return home with nothing but false hope? She considered leaving. Then the door opened, and every head in the cafe turned. He walked in like he owned the air itself. A tall man entered, wearing a simple but expensive black shirt, sleeves rolled casually, a bandage peeking from beneath the fabric. His presence filled the room immediately. He moved with the confidence of someone used to being obeyed. Feared, the staff whispered. To each other, people straightened their posture. Some even froze. Sipped out a Maina, had no idea who he was. But everyone else clearly did. His eyes scanned the cafe. Until they landed on her, the man walked straight toward her table. Amina stood awkwardly, unsure if she should greet him or stay seated. "You came," he said softly, his voice deep. Familiar was the same one from the phone, but in person it held a warmth that surprised her. "Yes," she replied, lowering her gaze. "I hope this wasn't inconvenient for you." "Inconvenient?" He smiled. "You carried me 1/2 kilometer through the rain. This is the least I can do." She didn't know how to respond. The truth starts to unfold. He sat across from her. "May I ask something?" He began gently. "Why did you leave the hospital so quickly last night?" Amina fidgeted with her scarf. I didn't want any trouble." "Trouble?" "I didn't want the police asking questions or people assuming things. Women like me. We avoid attention." He nodded slowly. Her honesty impressed him. "And the company I work for is very strict about timing. If they knew I had stopped to help someone, they might have." Her voice broke. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "They might have what?" Amina took a shaky breath. "They fired me," she whispered. The cafe fell silent around them. The sounds in the background felt muted. He stared at her, stunned. "They fired you? Because you saved me?" She nodded. She expected pity. Or worse, judgment. Instead, his jaw clenched with anger. "What company is this?" he asked, voice low. She looked down. "Al Rian Group of Industries." The man went still, utterly still. Amina didn't notice the shift, but the cafe staff did. "People," whispered. Eyes widened, because the man she was sitting with, the man whose life she saved, the man whose company fired her, was the owner of Al Rian Group. The reveal, but not yet to her. He leaned back, collecting his thoughts, fighting the surge of anger rising inside him. His company, his employees, his policies, had thrown out a woman who saved his life. But he didn't tell her who he was. Not yet. Instead, he asked softly, "Amina, if someone wronged you, what would you want? Money? A job? Justice?" She hesitated. "I don't want revenge," she said quietly. "I just want a chance to live with dignity, to work, To give my son a life better than mine. Asterisk a son. The word hit him hard. She wasn't fighting for herself. She was fighting for her child. He took a deep breath. "What if I told you," he said slowly, "that your life is about to change?" She blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" He smiled, not arrogantly, not proudly, but with a certainty that carried power. "I mean, there are people who hurt good women like you because they think you're invisible. But I don't let good people stay invisible, especially not the person who saved my life." Amina stared at him. Heart-pounding. She didn't know his name. She didn't know his power. She didn't know she was sitting across from a billionaire, but she felt something, shifting like her fate had found a new direction. And tomorrow, the world that ignored her would learn her name. Asterisk the day the billionaire walked into his own company. With a storm behind him, Amina left the cafe with a heart full of confusion and hope tangled together like threads she couldn't separate. The mysterious man gentle.com, strangely powerful, had promised that her life was about to change, but she didn't know what he meant. She didn't know his name. She didn't know his world. She returned to her small home and hugged her son tightly, still fearing to hope too much. Meanwhile, a different storm was brewing elsewhere in the city. He returned to his empire, and nothing was going to be the same. The man Amina rescued, Zayn Rayan, CEO and heir of the massive Al Rayyan Group, stepped out of his car at the headquarters. Employees froze. Some whispered. Some straightened their backs. Some ran to pretend. They were suddenly very busy because Zayn never came in unannounced. Zayn never arrived without a convoy. Zayn never looked like. This highest bandaged side was visible. His jaw was set with ice-cold determination, and his eyes had the focused fury of a man who had found a problem he was ready to burn to the ground. His assistant rushed to him. "Sir, the board is waiting." "Good. We'll start with them." The boardroom that never felt so small. Every executive of Al Rayyan Industries sat around the long glass table. Polished shoes, expensive pens, faces full of pride and self-importance, until Zayn entered. Then pride turned into fear. He didn't sit. He stood at the head of the table. Coat off, sleeves rolled, looking like a man who was here to settle debts. "Gentlemen, ladies, before we discuss today's schedule, I need clarity on one thing." The room shifted uncomfortably. Zayn placed his palms on the table. "Who fired the woman named Amina Hassan?" A silence colder than steel filled the room. Executives glanced at each other until finally, one man short round, with a tie too tight for his neck, cleared his throat. "Sir." That was the decision of the floor manager, but it followed company protocol. Zayn's eyes sharpened. "Company protocol." "Yes, sir." She was late. Several times, as Zayn leaned forward. "She was late," he repeated slowly, "because she was carrying me half-conscious and bleeding through the rain so I wouldn't collapse on the road." Mouths dropped open. Eyes widened. Some executives gasped. The round man stuttered. "Sir, we didn't know." "No," Zayn said, voice dangerously calm. "You didn't care?" He turned to the entire table. "This company will never again punish someone for choosing humanity over punctuality." No one dared to breathe. Then the hammer fell. "Effective today," Zayn said, eyes fixed on the manager responsible. "Your services are terminated." "Sir, please." Zayn raised a hand. "You fired the woman who saved my life, and you expect mercy?" Security entered silently. The man was escorted out. The rest of the boardroom sat in terrified silence. "Policy rewritten because of one woman from now on," Zayn continued. "Any employee who assists in a medical emergency will be protected under a new humanitarian policy." He looked around the room. "And if anyone has a problem with that?" His eyes hardened. "You know where the door is?" Not a single person spoke. Zayn stepped back from the table. "One more thing," he said. "This company wronged Amina Hassan. I intend to fix that. The search for Amina begins. Assistant immediately. I want her address, her file, Her entire history with this company. Already prepared, sir, the assistant replied, handing him a folder. He opened it, and his heart tightened. Single mother, working minimum wage. No complaints. Never took leave except when her son was sick. Walked to work because she couldn't afford transport. Then he reached the last page. Terminated. Reason, lateness. Notes, unreliable, replaceable. Zayn's fists clenched. Replaceable, if only they knew. He slammed the folder shut. Prepare a car. I'm going to see her now, sir. Now, back in Amina's world, a surprise knocks on the door. Amina was cooking lentils for Samir, humming softly, trying to push back the storm of emotions from earlier. Samir was coloring on the floor. Ami, look, I made a superhero. Amina smiled. Mashallah, very nice. A knock echoed through the small house. She blinked. Who could that be? She opened the door, then froze. Standing outside, tall, confident, impossibly out of place in her humble neighborhood, was the man from the Café Zay. Though she still didn't know his name. Her breath caught. You. Here, she whispered. He smiled gently. May I come in? She stepped aside. Stunned, a man who belonged in boardrooms stood in a home with peeling paint sign, entered the small home respectfully. Taking in the faded curtains, the old fan, the cracked tiles, and then the little boy looking up at him with wide eyes, Samir walked closer, clutching his coloring book. Ami, who is this? Amina opened her mouth, but Zayn knelt down first, smiling at the boy. I'm a friend of your mother's. Samir blinked, then slowly smiled back. Amina's heart squeezed. Why was this man so kind? Why did he care about her? What did he want? Zayn rose to his feet and turned to her. Amina, I came because I couldn't wait. Wait for what? She asked softly. He took a deep breath. For justice, for gratitude, for the chance to give you back the dignity that was taken from you. Amina stared, confused. Amina, he said gently, I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you earlier. Her heart pounded. He took a step closer. My name is Zayn Rayan. Froze, the owner of Al Rand Group. Her world stopped. Her breath vanished. Her legs shook. The billionaire. The owner. Her former boss's boss. The man whose company had thrown her away was standing in her living room. And then he said the words that made her knees weak. Amina, I came here today to say this personally. Looked into her eyes. You will not suffer because of saving me. You will not beg for work again. Will not walk through life alone. Amina's lips trembled. Why? Why are you doing this? She whispered. He held her gaze with a sincerity that made her heart race. Because good people deserve good things. And because you saved my life. And now I intend to change yours. Amina didn't know whether to cry, speak, or collapse. Because for the first time in her life, a powerful man wasn't here to take something from her. He was here to give, and tomorrow, the world would learn what happens when a billionaire decides to stand with a woman in the world. Had ignored * the day the world learned who Amina really was. The final chapter, instant karma. Justice and a new beginning. Amina stood frozen in the middle of her tiny living room, staring at the man whose name alone made executives tremble. Zayn Rayan, the billionaire CEO, the man she had unknowingly saved, the man whose company had tossed her aside like a worn shoe, but he was here now. Not as a CEO above her, but as a human being standing before her, and something about his presence felt like the start of a story she never believed she deserved. The offer that changed her life. Amina, Zayn said gently. Please sit. Her voice shook. I don't understand. He looked around her small home, the peeling paint, the cheap furniture, the quiet strength in every corner that showed how hard she had fought. Then he spoke softly. I want you to return to the company. She inhaled sharply. No, I can't face them again. Zayn nodded. I know. And you won't have to. She blinked. He continued. You won't go back as a helper. Or a cleaner. or an assistant? Mina frowned, confused. You will go back, he said. As head of employee welfare and ethics, Mina's lips parted in disbelief. That position is meant, he explained, for someone who understands struggle, compassion, fairness, someone who knows how workers truly live. But I don't have a degree, she whispered. You have something rarer, Zayn replied. Humanity. Mina felt her heart tremble. He went on, and everything that happened to you, the unfair firing, the humiliation will become the reason no one else ever faces the same injustice again. Her eyes filled with tears, tears she had held back for years. Why me? She whispered. Zad looked at her the way no man ever had. Because you deserve a chance at life, he said quietly, and because you saved mine. The company's moral AWAKANING 2 days later. Amina walked into Alran headquarters, not as a fired worker, not as a forgotten employee, but as the woman whose story had shaken the entire company. Employees stared as she entered, not with mockery, but with awe. Whispers spread like electricity. That's her. The woman who saved the CEO, she was fired. And now she's back? Subhanallah? Look at the way he's walking beside her. Yes, Zayn walked beside her, not in front, not behind. Beside her as equals, and every person who once looked down on her lowered their eyes. Instant karma had arrived. The meeting that Nate, one expected Zion, called a general assembly. Thousands of employees gathered. Executives sat stiff and anxious. Amina stood on stage beside Zayon, heart pounding. Zayon stepped forward. I want to tell you all a story, he began. He told them everything. The accident, the rain, the woman who saved him. The way she carried him while soaking wet despite her own exhaustion, and then the part that stunned the entire hall, and after saving my life, my own company fired her. For being late, gasps echoed across the hall. Some executives turned pale. Some couldn't meet his eyes. Zayon continued. This company lost its heart. We became obsessed with rules, but forgot humanity. And it took Amina, a single mother with no privileges, to remind us of what truly matters. Then, he turned to her. Amina Hassan is now the head of our new Welfare and Ethics Division. The hall erupted into applause. Many employees had tears in their eyes. Some of them had faced the same unfair treatment she once did, and now someone who understood them was in power. Justice had arrived. The man who waited outside her house every Evie and Angie weeks passed. Amina excelled at her new position. She listened to employees. She fixed problems. She changed policies. She became the heart of the organization. But there was something else happening, too. Something quieter, softer, stronger. After work, every evening, Zayon's car would stop outside her home, not as a CEO giving orders, but as a man trying, gently, respectfully, to be part of her world. He helped Samir with homework. He brought groceries when he knew she was tired. He repaired a broken kitchen cabinet himself. Not once did he overstep. He was simply there, and Amina felt something she hadn't felt in years, safe. The day he finally said IT one evening. After dropping off some reports she needed to review, Zahen lingered at her door. Amina felt the air change. Zahen, is something wrong? He took a slow breath. Amina, I've seen strength. I've seen courage. I've seen women born into privilege and women who built themselves from nothing. He looked at her with a softness. That made her knees weak. But I've never met anyone like you, Mina's chest tightened. He continued, You've saved my life, and then you changed it. She blinked rapidly, fighting tears, and the truth is, I want to be part of your life too. Not as a CEO, not as someone above you, but as a man who admires you. Amina's breath caught. Amina, he whispered, may I try to build a life with you and Samir? A silence like a held breath filled the doorway. Then Amina, through tears she could no longer hold back, nodded slowly. Yes. And when Zayan smiled, it felt like the world finally allowed her to breathe. The wedding everyone talked about 2 months later. A simple but beautiful ceremony took place, not in a palace, not in a grand hall, but in a community center in Amina's neighborhood because she wanted her world to stay real. Humble, grounded, Amina wore a soft pastel dress, simple and elegant. Samir held her hand proudly. Zayan stood with a glow no wealth could buy. Executives attended, employees attended, people from every level of society came to witness something rare. Billionaire marrying a woman the world once ignored, the moment they said Kabul high acceptance. Amina felt her entire life shift. She was no longer alone, no longer underestimated, no longer struggling in silence. She was finally valued, finally respected, finally loved. Epilogued the karma that came full circle months later. The ex-manager who fired Amina applied for a job at a small company nearby. He was rejected again, and again his reputation followed him everywhere. People whispered, "That's the man who fired the woman who saved the CEO's life." And that was his instant karma. Meanwhile, Amina's photo holding her new son with Zayan and Samir beside her was posted on the company's wall. Under it, quote chosen by Zayan, "Kindness is never weakness. One act of compassion can change the world." And it all started with a single mother choosing to help a stranger in the rain,